what we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina, and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets.
Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum, and he bragged how his subversive WEF, World Economic Forum, has, quoted, infiltrated governments around the world. He said that his organization had penetrated more than half of Canada's cabinet. And I was wondering, in the interest of transparency, could the member please name which cabinet ministers are on board with the WEF's agenda?
The member was in a really good question there, but the audio is really bad.
We have continuous partnerships with many governments around the world. And of course, we have NGOs, we have trade unions, we have all those different parts.
Media, of course.
Right?
People always say, where were you? And
that's right.
You and I were having breakfast. Yeah. In New York on September 11th.
So I just wanted to express my appreciation and my pride, if I may say so, for what has been achieved. But I think the obstacles, or not the challenges, are coming now. And Peter, I wish that you are very successful in preparing the next phase of the Global Fund. So again, thank you.
I can tell you, it's not Ursula von der Leyen. She is not making any decisions. It's not Bill Gates. It's not even Klaus Schwab, right? They're not the ones calling the shots, because they're the idiots that hang their face in the camera and advocate for all of this nonsense and this totalitarian crap. So it's not them. But who it is, I really don't know. I have no idea. And I usually refer to them, for the lack of a better word, as the globalitarian misanthropists, right? So there is a group of people, I have no idea who they are, but they are the ones calling the shots. And our elected governments are mere puppets. They are just, pretty much implementing whatever they come up with. To what end and what their goal is, to me, it seems quite obvious. It is to ultimately erect a one world government and to transform our liberal, open, democratic, equal societies consisting of free individuals into some kind of a collectivism where the individual is becoming merely a malleable part that can be shuggled around any which way the globalitarian misanthropists need you to be shoveled around.
We're living through a pandemic that continues to ravage communities in every corner of the globe. Climate change wreaking havoc on our planet, with the most vulnerable suffering most of all. The few weaponizing lies and disinformation at the expense of the many. And from the horrific war in Ukraine to the rolling back of constitutional rights here in the United States, we are witnessing a global assault on democracy and freedom.
All right, hello and welcome. You have reached the Diamond Report live. Yet again, this is your host, Doug Diamond. For the next little while, we'll see how things proceed tonight. Hope you guys had a good week. It is 10:06 p.m. Seems like it's always 10:06 p.m. when I start. 10:06 p.m. on Sunday night, April 13th, 2025. And how about that video? I thought that was a good one. And I know, and I know you guys know, or at least have heard, who this person is that they're referring to in that video that we just watched, starting about 2.5 minutes into that video. And I'll go back and play it again for a little refresher if you need it. The person that they are talking about, the person that they are referring to in the video, no one seems to know who they're talking about, who they mean, who is above the World Enslavement Forum, formerly known as the World Economic Forum. I call them the World Enslavement Forum. Who is above the World Enslavement Forum, do you think? Anyone want to take a guess in chat? Let's go back and play just a little bit of this video again, just for a little refresher here. So let me go back to where the video is. You'll still be able to hear me, but you won't be able to see me. So what we're going to do is we're going to play, and we're going to skip ahead to where they're talking here on redacted. Show that I like. It's a really good one. This lady here, you see on screen, is a German, I believe, member of parliament, I think. We've seen her on other videos, and she always has really good commentary. But notice what she says here. No one seems to know who's really the head of the World Economic Forum, World Enslavement Forum. So here we go. Let me play this again.
I can tell you it's not Ursula von der Leyen. She is not making any decisions. It's not Bill Gates. It's not even Klaus Schwab, right? They're not the ones calling the shots, because they're the idiots that hang their face in the camera and advocate for all of this nonsense and this totalitarian crap. So it's not them.
No, it's not them. It is King Charles. That's who it is. That's the question she's asking. That's the answer to the question she's asking. It's King Charles. Klaus Schwab is a knight of King Charles. King Charles came up with the whole idea of the Great Reset far before Klaus Schwab did. Now, Schwab's book was entitled The Great Reset, but that is actually Charles's idea. So that's the person that's above the World Enslavement Forum. I just wanted to point that out. I saw that video earlier in the week and thought it was very telling that people don't seem to even understand who it is that's actually in charge. And of course, I say King Charles because he's about to be, very soon, I believe, the biblical Antichrist. Now, is he what we all assume the biblical Antichrist is going to be like? This larger-than-life personality who has enraptured the entire world and everyone loves him? No, he's not. There's a lot of people that do love him. People in this country don't really. But a lot of people around the world do love the guy. And is he a little older than we thought? Yeah, he is. But where in Scripture does it say he has to be 33 years old or a young guy or handsome, which, some people would say that he was back in his days, or someone who could really bring people to him with his personality? I mean, he's obviously quite a loser, actually, at this point, if you ask me. But yeah, he does own a lot of actual territory of the world. It's called the Commonwealth. And the British Royal Crown that he is in charge of certainly controls a lot of that area. So many, many countries across the world, and he has a lot of power. I personally think that we are on the brink of seeing the revealing of Charles as the biblical Antichrist, and people won't be able to really put that together for some time. But you've heard it here, and you've heard it many other places across YouTube land and other places. So anyway, we'll address that a little bit later, but we'll take a look at the news. We've got several things pulled up. I wanted to kind of continue on a little bit from last week. We talked about the trade war, but the stock market in particular. And I found this article on Hal's website, HalTurnerRadioShow.com. China strikes back with 125% tariffs. Global trade war erupts. China has retaliated against Trump's reciprocal tariffs by raising its levies on U.S. goods to 125% from 84%, the finance ministry said. As a result, the Trump administration confirmed that the tariff rate on Chinese imports now effectively totals 145%. Even if the U.S. continues to impose higher tariffs, it will no longer make economic sense and will become a joke in the history of world economy, the ministry said in a statement. And then this part's in bold red here. With tariff rates at the current level, there is no longer a market for U.S. goods imported into China, which I'm not sure how much they were actually using anyway. The statement noted, adding that if the U.S. government continues to increase tariffs in China, Beijing will ignore. This is the end of the escalation in terms of bilateral tariff rates. Both China and the U.S. have sent clear messages. There's no point of raising tariffs further. President and Chief economist at Pinpoint Asset Management says. Mr. Zhang, I guess, or Zhang. The next step would be to evaluate the damage to economic activities in the U.S. and China, Zhang said, adding that there is no sign that the two governments would start negotiations and avoid a major disruption in the global supply chains. And then Hal's opinion here says, at midnight, triple-digit tariffs hit China. This article is dated Friday. Triple-digit tariffs hit China, targeting their strategy of flooding the global markets with cheap goods to fund military expansion and challenge U.S. dominance without access to America, the world's top consumer. China has nowhere else to sell. Europe lacks demand, and domestic buyers are shrinking with falling birth rates. Economic pain in China means mass layoffs, and mass layoffs threaten communist control. To avoid chaos, the U.S. must bury Beijing's ambitions with the diplomatic finesse, not a hammer. Asia is lining up in Washington to cut deals, and Trump holds the cards. If he pulls this off, he may not just reshape trade, he could rewrite history. Wall Street Journal, citing economists, says the world is heading toward a disorderly economic decoupling between the U.S. and China. So, anyway, a little update there, and that last bit was Hal's editorial opinion, and it says so here on this particular article on his site. So I just wanted to point that out. Thought it was pretty interesting, and of course we'll see where the trade wars go. It's not looking too good, though, I guess. Trump's White House is going full Holy Week. Yes, there will be hymns and opera. So this is kind of interesting. AI-generated picture for sure. Big Easter energy is coming out of the White House this week. Trump just launched a full-on Holy Week celebration, and it's kind of a big deal. Think national prayer and worship services, Bible readings, and even a Christian dinner featuring hymns and opera. Leading the charge is the new White House Faith Office, and they've got everything lined up. Pastors like, I know, your favorites, Franklin Graham, singers from Liberty University, and special Easter video messages across the country. It's all building up to a huge Resurrection Sunday meant to bring Easter back to what it's really about, faith, not just candy and egg hunts. It's never been about that, has it? Maybe for the little kids, but Trump said he'd bring faith back into the spotlight, and this week is center stage. So, of course, there are many, many things to dive into there. We could spend an hour at least on just that. What would I just mention in those few sentences? But we're not going to do that today. I know you guys are with me on all of this stuff as far as Easter and Ishtar and eggs and bunnies and rabbits and all that stuff and the fertility god, and it's not actually about Jesus and all of that. Yes, I know all of that. However, it is kind of interesting that Trump is trying to bring this back. To what degree, we may not necessarily agree with all of the details, but the point is he is trying to bring faith back into the Oval Office, unlike the past occupant of the White House. So if you just look at it that way, I think it's a little obvious that even though he may not be doing it the way you would do it or the way I would do it, it doesn't mean that he's not trying to honor God. That's how I see this. Now, if you think otherwise, that's totally fine. And it's totally fine to do that. However, I think that it's good news that at least he's trying to bring it back. Now, he's got some people involved here that are highly suspect, highly questionable. Yes, I know Paula White, the White House faith person here that he's designated, as well as Franklin Graham and others. I know. I get it. I do. But do you think for a minute, for a second that Joseph R. Biden would have done any of this stuff? Did he ever in the 4 years he was in there? No. At least he's not calling for a trans day of visibility. Yeah, Emily says. Yep. Yeah, that's true. And that was on Easter too, if I remember right. So yes, I know it's not about all that stuff. It's about the resurrection. And Hal knows that as well. It's just that he's sort of playing along here a little bit with the story. But I do think it's good news overall. But the details are definitely not as good as they could be, in my opinion. All right, and then this one, JP Morgan Chase CEO, Jamie Dimon, no relation, and it's not Diamond, it's Diamond. If we avoid a nuclear war, ... So chief executive of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, again, D-I-M-O-N, says young Americans need to stop whining and start realizing just how good their future looks if we avoid nuclear war, is the beginning of a sentence. If we avoid nuclear war, they're going to live unbelievable lives. You're inheriting a superpower, so stop bemoaning the situation, he says. Okay. He cited a $200 to $300 trillion national net worth, AI breakthroughs, and lifespans that could stretch up to 120 years. Interesting number. With 84 trillion set to transfer to heirs by 2045, Diamond's message is clear. This generation isn't doomed. They're loaded with opportunity. And, Hal, for whatever reason, really likes this guy. I cannot say that I agree. I think he's a number one globalist, first and foremost, and is bad news. But it is interesting where he thinks that now that Trump's in there, that there's a positive thing that's going to happen here in the future for this current generation. I don't know. Personally, I don't necessarily think that's true, but it is interesting that he's out there saying that. It's kind of changed his tune from what I can tell. I mean, as far as talking globalism versus now saying that there's going to be all these breakthroughs that he's talking about. Lifespans that could stretch to 120 years. Well, that's only with transhumanism, most likely, right? That's what I would think. Anyway, that story is on Hal's website, halturnerradioshow.com. U.S. and Iran begin nuclear talks in Oman. Talks between the U.S. and Iran regarding the Iranian nuclear program began Saturday morning in Oman. Of course, this is just a couple days ago, yesterday. At stake is a possible military conflict between Iran versus Israel and the U.S. The talks are indirect because Iran will not negotiate directly with the United States, according to the Iranian Foreign Ministry. The talks between the Iranian and American person here, Steve Witkoff, are taking place in two separate rooms, and the exchange of positions will be carried out through the foreign minister of Oman. Weird. The Iran foreign minister said this morning, our goal is to reach a fair and honest agreement from a position of equality. If the other side also approaches from this position, then there will be a chance for an initial agreement that will lead to the beginning of the negotiation process. It says Israel and U.S. are insisting that Iran never have a nuclear bomb, which, of course, we've talked about that many times on this show. I think they've been 2 weeks from having one for years at this point, decades, and have repeatedly said they may bomb the Iranian nuclear program to assure no such development by Iran. Iran has replied that despite the U.S. pulling out of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action negotiated under the Obama regime, that agreement is still in full force and effect with other countries that signed on to it. And as such, Iran is honoring that agreement and has no nuclear ambitions. So they're not really saying that they have it. Of course, Israel says that they don't have it either, as far as nukes go. Yeah, right. Israel, of course, is paranoid and wants absolute proof and absolute control over the issue, which Israel has no right to seek because Israel itself has nuclear weapons. This morning, Iran proposed a nuclear-free Middle East. Iran seeks Israel being disarmed at the nuclear weapons that they already have. That went over like a lead balloon, but the proposal has now been made. So anyway, we'll see where it goes. I don't know. Not really holding out a whole lot of hope here. I think I do have one other story pulled up here on the whole Iranian U.S. talks here. So let's hold out for just a little bit here. I think it's one of these RT tabs that I have pulled up. Dictator Zelensky declares no on elections. No elections or voting this summer. It's nonsense to plan elections during active combat, he says. First, we win the war, and then we hold votes, according to that guy. Here in the U.S., we suffered a civil war in the 1860s, actual combat amongst ourselves on our own soil, yet we still held an election for president. What is Ukraine's excuse? The simple fact is something like that can very likely be worked out with Russia to halt the combat so an election could take place safely. That's true. It would be in Russia's interest to do that because, as should be obvious, the newly elected president in Ukraine might have a very different policy toward Russia, thereby bringing an end to the combat permanently. Yeah, of course they can't really chance that, can they? So it seems to most people that the Russians would be at least amenable to taking steps to assure a safe day or two for an election, yet the Zelensky regime says no. Yeah, His term of office expired last May, so we're working on almost a year where he has been dictator. He is a piano-playing dictator, if you know what I mean. All right, conclusive proof. I thought this one was interesting. I kind of remember talking about this months ago when this happened. December 15th, 2024, Israel dropped a tactical nuclear bomb on Tartus, Syria. This was right after the whole mess in Syria started up. And let me play this and mute it here for you guys so you can see it. We talked about this when it happened, how huge it looks, at least from this video. Just a massive explosion. And of course, they're bombing the ammo dump, is what it was officially. So everybody thinks, okay, well, it's just the ammunition exploding too. That's why it's such a huge explosion. And I remember thinking at the time, I don't know, it seems awfully big to me. Well, according to this article here, radiation readings in and around Tartus, Syria, along with seismic recordings, prove conclusively that Israel dropped a 0.3 kiloton tactical nuclear bomb on an ammunition dump in Tartus, Syria on December 15, 2024. Then here's the video. News media coverage of the huge explosion reported that it was so large it registered a magnitude 3.0 earthquake on seismographs. It is those seismic readings that provide proof that the blast was nuclear, not simply on an ammo dump detonating secondarily to an explosive attack. In the graphic below, you can see that the seismic readout of various types of explosions. At the top right is the explosion in Tartus, Syria. Notice it is a synchronous explosion, not a delayed asynchronous explosion as seen in the bottom right seismogram for the ammo dump in Ukraine in 2023. The top seismogram from Tartus matches almost identically to the middle seismogram, which identified an underground nuclear blast in North Korea. Okay, so here's what we're talking here. Let's look at it in a little bit more detail. This looks like sound waves to me, so I'm very used to looking at things like this. So this one right here is the one that was an actual bomb that hit and it exploded an ammo dump. You can see the delayed explosion here. This is the massive explosion, but this is the original. This is the original hit, and then the ammo dump blows up here. So you got two big spikes and really almost a third one here after that. But if you look at these two, the Tartus one that we're talking about primarily is just the one large spike. There was no preceding smaller spike before it. And then that matches with what Hal's saying here with a known nuclear blast in North Korea, underground nuclear test. So that's kind of what they're showing here in the different seismograms. So anyway, I do think it's very interesting. There's more here to look at on this, but this scientist that went through all of this and proved it basically, you know, from what I can tell, it looks to be 100% legitimate that was a nuclear explosion. So now we've got Israel nuking people. Israel is nuking people. And no one seems to know or care. So this is the before and the after areas, I guess, from the Tartus naval base area that was exploded. So anyway, there's some pictures and different graphs and things like that on this pretty good article about all this. So yes, that's the important detail here is that yes, nukes are being used, even though they're quote tactical, which just means lower yield. But they are being used in the Middle East, and Israel was the first one to do it. True Nature says, Doug, why, in your opinion, has Syria become so taken over? Location, etc. I remember when that false chemical attack was done, it must have some serious value to go to that extent. Yeah, it's part of the Levant. Part of Syria is going to be part of the Greater Israel Project, which we've talked about before on this show. They want to expand the global footprint of Israel and make it larger. Part of that includes Syria. Now, whether or not it's, you know, if Tartus is in there, I don't know. But yeah, it comes down to a land grab to some degree. They're wanting to expand the Greater Israel Project and the Levant in that area. So yeah, they're trying to grab as much land as possible, it looks like. But it's the land that they feel like they are rightly entitled to. So they say the Bible says. So, and of course that is arguable at best. But I do think that that's part of the reason that they are going after Iran as well. Anyway, yeah, thanks for the question. That was good. All right, let's keep moving here. We've got need-to-know.news articles pulled up as well. Trump tariffs, market plunge, record-breaking rise and then fall. Donald Trump accused of insider trading. I thought that was pretty funny. By the very same people who, that's how they make their millions and millions and millions of dollars. The same people who are benefiting from the insider trading are the same people who are yelling and screaming from the mountaintops here that now Trump is doing that. Good one. Trump rocked the financial world this week after he imposed tariffs that sent the stock market into a downward spiral. On Wednesday, he announced a 90-day pause in tariffs, and markets set a record for a one-day gain. However, the next day, markets tumbled because no one knows what will happen when the 90 days are up. The issue is prolonged uncertainty. Trump announced on his social media platform, Truth Social, quote, "This is a great time to buy," end quote. That's all he said. That was on the morning of Wednesday, April 9th. Less than 4 hours later, Trump announced a 90-day pause on nearly all of his tariffs. Stocks soared on the news, closing up 9.5% by the end of trading. The market, measured by the S&P 500, gained back about $4 trillion, or 70% of the value that it had lost over the previous 4 trading days. Democrat senators are calling for an investigation into insider trading. Isn't that rich? The very same people who, that's how they, come into being in Congress with their net worths oftentimes in the 5 digits, and by the time they're done with being in Congress, because they're oftentimes becoming career Congress people at this point, by the time they're done, they're worth tens to hundreds of millions of dollars. And that is not from clipping coupons and being frugal. As we jokingly say around here, no, that is from insider trading. Just ask Nancy Pelosi. She knows all about it. And not just her. Many of the Congress people. So anyway, but it's pretty funny that they're accusing him of that just based on this one tweet. This is a great time to buy. He's giving advice. But, insider trading, I think not. Anyway, pretty funny. Now, this one's really interesting. Got a short little video here to watch on this. I mentioned this last week, and we played a video last week on this Virginia Giuffre, or I'm not sure exactly how to say her name. No disrespect intended. Of course, she is one of the Epstein victims from back when she was a youngster, being traded around and bought and sold and trafficked essentially. Now, last week, I ended up having to remove the video from the broadcast, not for any other reason other than time. I was trying to save some time. So if you go back and look at last week's show, the video is not actually in there anymore. But many of you guys saw it, especially the folks who are here tonight live, did see this video. And it raises a few questions as to what actually happened here. And I think this does too. A little more information. Western Australia says Jeffrey Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre, 41, made headlines after she posted a photo of herself bruised and battered in a hospital bed following a car crash with a school bus on March 24th. That's what the video was talking about that we played. She alleged that she had only, quote, 4 days to live. She claimed that the bus was traveling at 70 miles per hour, but the accident report shows that there was only minor damage to the vehicles involved. She said that she has mistakenly posted the claim that she had only 4 days to live publicly when she had intended to keep it private. So there you go. That's highly suspect. Her post suggests that she does not have custody of her 3 children. She's accused her husband of 20 years of domestic violence. Virginia accused England's Prince Edward, who, by the way, is related to King Charles' brother, I think, right? Prince Andrew of sexually assaulting her on 3 occasions when she was 17, claims the royal denied despite settling out of court for $12 million. So let's watch this short little video here. I thought it was very telling. So let's get a little bit more info.
Now we're hearing from Virginia Roberts' family. And we also heard from Virginia. She gave a very short statement to People magazine. Said, I was able to fight back against Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, who abused and trafficked me, but I was unable to escape the domestic violence in my marriage until recently. After my husband's latest physical assault, I can no longer stay silent. Again, I thank everyone for their support. I have faith that justice will prevail. Okay. Now, a spokesperson for Virginia confirms that Virginia reported a January 9th, 2025 assault in Western Australia to police, who did not charge her husband for any crime. His attorney responded to statements for her, and said, unfortunately, as the issues you raise are before the courts in Australia, both he and anyone associated with the case, including Virginia or her agents, are prohibited from discussing or utilizing the media. Therefore, there is no comment. Now, Virginia's brother, Sky Roberts, and his wife, Amanda, both say Virginia is making the allegations because of the severity of her injuries. Now, Amanda said, I think the last incident that they had, she almost died. Talking about the January 9th one. And we had to speak that truth with her on the phone, and I think she had acknowledged that if she had one more instance with him, she wasn't making it out of there. Now, Sky and Amanda note they don't know whether Virginia's medical issues were caused by the crash or complications from a recent beating she allegedly suffered. Well, it wasn't from the crash. I'm not even sure she was in the crash. Let's be clear. She never stated in the bus accident the cause of all of her other injuries, but I do think the bus crash in some way, shape, or form saved her life. It could have been a blessing in disguise. Here's what I think. I think that she was injured prior to the crash, whether it's from her husband beating her or something else. Because remember, she had a carer, the 71-year-old woman who was in the car, probably alone. The school bus driver talked to her, interacted with her, went over to the car, did not see Virginia in the car. The carer gets home, talks about the accident. Oh, okay, well, maybe I was in there with you. So then the older woman, the carer, calls the school bus driver and says, oh, the person, she's got a black eye, the one who was in the car. And he's like, what? I already made a police report. There's nobody there. So I think that's what happened with that. Now, her brother says, look, I don't know what happened internally to her. But he said that Virginia's bruising is consistent with a car crash. He also says nobody ever said her liver issues and kidney failure were ever from that. We still don't know if it is. I'm not a medical professional. That's up to her doctor to determine. He said, I think that the damage to Virginia's organs were from years of alleged abuse. You got to think she's been allegedly being abused for over 10 years. Anyone's body's going to take a toll over a course of time. Now, Sky and Amanda say that Virginia, having marital issues for a while, in August 2023, separated from Robert, the father of her 3 children, who were 19, 16, and 15. But remember, Robert was given custody. But during a trip to celebrate one of the children's birthdays in January, Robert allegedly beat Virginia so severely, she was left with a cracked sternum and perforated eye, among other injuries. And she was transported to the hospital for her injuries. That's according to Virginia's spokesperson. Now, the family was shocked because Robert's the one who filed a family violence restraining order against her, saying that she had become violent with him. And Virginia's brother said he just puts his in place first. Now she's on the defense. And she was accused of breaching the restraining order by texting Robert on February 2nd. Okay. It really does just get more crazy and interesting.
That it does, yes. So, I hate that she's hurt here, but it does appear to be a domestic violence or a domestic abuse sort of situation. From what I've seen here, as far as what this article is talking about. So, I don't have any more details than any of the rest of you guys, but it looks very suspect for sure. And note, she never did, pass away. The whole 4 days to live thing was apparently not true. So, let's see. It still looks like someone beat her up really bad. Emily says, yeah, that is what it looks like. With that childhood, there is no way to feel normal or be normal. It's like famous actors, except fame lures them. The whole thing is so unfair. Yeah, what a life she's had. How awful. Yes, I agree. To be abused really her whole life is really terrible. And it's too bad that she has to continue lying about stuff like this. But, obviously she was beat up. The question is, was it the car accident or was it her husband or someone else? We don't know. But it is very interesting. I didn't know if you guys knew about those other details that have now come out about all of this. So we'll see what happens, huh? And then this story from earlier in the week, the dire wolf. You guys hear about the dire wolf species? Has not been resurrected from extinction. It is a hybrid. Dallas-based Colossal Biosciences. I wonder if they're working on bigger projects than wolves. A genetic engineering company simply injected some of the dire wolf's genome into a modern wolf species and created a mutant hybrid. AJ reviewed genetically engineered animals and human hybrids. He warned that dangerous viruses can be obtained from resurrected DNA and that gain-of-function germ warfare is being developed. Anyway, very interesting, and there is a embedded video here. Hoax alert, dire wolf species has not been resurrected from extinction, simply been merged with existing wolves. Yes. So anyway, who knows where it's going, but seems a little bit like the dog version of Jurassic Park to me. I don't know. So yes, the dire wolves. Sounds like a band. It's a good name for a band. All right, let's see here. technocracy.news, Trump's Commonwealth move, and the technocrat threat. So we mentioned the Commonwealth a little bit ago. See what this one's about. A Eurocentric nightmare unfolding, ? This interview with Brandon House nailed several things down. Does America want to be part of the British Commonwealth? I'll answer that. No. What's with the dark enlightenment and dark MAGA talk about an American monarchy? Is there a way to get rid of a scientific dictatorship if we don't like it? Is 1930s technocracy alive and kicking in 2025? ? Alas, those who dwell in a simulacrum will never see the train coming down the track. So yes, what's highlighted here in this picture is the British Commonwealth countries. So apparently they've done a video here with Brandon House, who's really good. We've played some of his videos on this show before. It's been a while, but yeah, there's interesting stuff there on technocracy.news. And then this one too, I mentioned the Great Reset earlier. The Great Reset, Ray Dalio sees a once-in-a-lifetime collapse in economic, political, and geopolitical orders. How about that? It's right up King Charles's alley, it sounds like. The founder of Bridgewater Associates is billionaire Ray Dalio, and Bridgewater is the second largest hedge fund in the world. He may or may not see the technocracy as the culprit, but he sees a major collapse in monetary, political, and geopolitical orders. Whether this fourth turning is investable, it will be technocracy's opportunity to capture the world, shoving us into scientific dictatorship, which is what we're talking about a lot on this show. That is not what we want. Technocracy is the beast system. Once upon a time, the Tower of Babel was constructed as a monument to man's ego while spitting in the face of God. Nothing has changed as the latest Tower of Babel seems to take over humanity, turn the created world upside down, escape into space, and yes, once again, spit in the face of God. Technocrat is code for psychopath, impaired empathy and remorse, along with megalomaniac traits, masked by superficial charm and immunity to stress. And the Liberty Beacon, Trump orders military to seal the southern border. Did you guys hear about this? Days after NBC reported that the Trump administration had considered launching drone strikes on drug cartels in Mexico, Trump issued a moratorium Friday night to the heads of 4 federal departments, expanding the U.S. military's role in securing the southern border. In accordance with Executive Order 14167, clarifying the military's role in protecting the territorial integrity of the United States. And Proclamation 10886, declaring a national emergency at the southern border of the United States. The move aligns with a broader strategic theme known as hemispheric defense. Hemispheric defense. The memo, titled Military Mission for Sealing the Southern Border of the United States and Repelling Invasions, was sent to Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, Homeland Security Secretary Noem, and Defense Secretary Hegseth, and Agriculture Secretary Rollins. So here is a screenshot of the top part of the executive order. States that our southern border is under attack from a variety of threats. The complexity of the current situation requires that our military take a more direct role in securing our southern border than in the past. So the Roosevelt Reservation in red. Here's a breakdown of the memo. Repel border invasion and seal the U.S.-Mexico border from unlawful entry. Empower the Department of Defense to use federal lands, excluding Indian reservations, for military operations, border barrier construction, surveillance infrastructure, and designation of national defense areas. So this area right here is what we're talking about. From Texas to the Pacific, they're going to be securing the border. Now, why not Texas? I don't know. Does Texas have their own protection going on? I'm not sure. Trump mandated that the U.S. military beef up its presence along the southern border days after NBC reported that the Trump administration officials mulled over kinetically dismantling the command and control structures of the Mexican drug cartels, now designated as terrorists. As previously noted, 2 months of signals intelligence have been conducted across the region via U.S. military spy planes. Border Patrol apprehensions on the U.S. border and with Mexico, and you can see it's dropped a lot here. Let's see. And then border apprehensions hit a record low in February, which ironically could make it harder to justify invoking the Insurrection Act to deal with the border invasion. So that is a little bit of news as far as the southern border goes. Sealing the U.S. border with the military. So, very interesting. Hopefully that is the extent of the orders that they will end up ever having, but I think that's good to secure the border. Beyond that, definitely cause for concern, right? Anytime the military's put out on the U.S. soil. All right, this is an interesting article. If you guys ever frequent the website BitChute, well, BitChute is based out of the UK, and I put my shows on BitChute. Says they had to shut down their in the UK because of the Online Safety Act. So the company that is based in the UK has had to shut down in the UK. Now, the website still works fine if you're, in the US and many other countries, but it's interesting that they've had to close up shop, I guess, in their own country because of pressure from the government, essentially. We wonder if Brits will still be able to get in with a VPN. Rumble was banned in France in November of 2022, but people have found a way around it with VPNs, all the while savoring the tyranny of their government. We still believe this is all to wake up the normies. Why this? Why now? The Online Safety Act dates back to 2023. Notice the relevant date below, March 17. And it says popcorn time once again. Yeah, I remember seeing this before. Notice to users in France. This is from Rumble, talking about how the French government has not let them do business in France, essentially. Twitter reaction is what you would expect. The communist Stasi have banned BitChute in the UK, book-burning criminals. So, yeah. So that's the screenshot of the message you get, apparently, if you're in the UK and try and visit bitchute.com. During Starmer's visit to the Oval Office, he claimed, in relation to free speech in the UK, I am very proud of our history here. History there. Wow. I'm sure he is. So yeah, they're very proud that they are censoring companies and people every chance they get. Anyway, yeah, BitChute discontinues its video hosting service in the UK, blames the Online Safety Act. Yeah, at some point I would think it would be very dangerous for them to continue. Otherwise, they will simply come arrest the people that run it and throw them in jail and shut it down anyway. So anyway, little tyranny here for the folks in the UK. Not good. Liberty Beacon is where that one is. And then this one too. And this one might kind of gross you out here, so bear with me. I'll try and be as matter of fact about this as possible. Girls raped in ritual ceremonies reveal the horrors. Investigative report. This is about Israel. The hidden debauchery of Israeli society. While not the product of systemic research, much of what we have bumped into on a certain branch of Judaism shows a strongly satanic influence. This is obliquely referenced in the report below. Judaism rabbi doing the satanic devil horn hand sign. So yes, there you go. There's a rabbi. I'm not sure which guy that is. A few minutes, totally worth our time in order to make a distinction between compassionate and humble Judaism and their approach to the Palestinians and the satanic version of it. A 180-degree shift. So yes, that's important. Not saying they're all this way, but you do need to know that. Here, I'm going to play this. You do need to know this is going on. Need we say more? Is this the satanic Talmudic synagogue of Satan? That is literally a pool of blood on the table. And he is wiping it all over his hands and face and I guess his back. I don't know where he's putting it back there. Putting it in his pocket? I don't know. And whose blood it is, I have no idea. But you can see what's going on here. And obviously it's part of a blood ritual of some sort. don't know and don't want to know. But obviously it's very important to them. And this guy's now reaching in and getting part of it too. And they're putting it on their face. Yeah, of their father, the devil, Emily says. Yes. So if you needed evidence, not that you did, but if you did need evidence, there it is. There's some evidence. And no, that's not a GoPro on his head. That is a tefillin. A tefillin. Yeah, that's how you say it. And it represents the cube of Saturn / Satan. So yeah, they do wear a black cube on their head sometimes. So figure that one out. Anyway, yeah, readers may be interested in these links on the true nature of the Talmud. The Talmud is the satanic book of the Jews, satanic verses of the Jewish Talmud and Zionism. So anyway, there you go. And then this is information here about the girls that I mentioned at the beginning of this article. Girls raped in ritual ceremonies reveal the horrors. Investigative report by Israel Hayam. The darkest ritual abuse exists in Israel as proven by decades of child abuse, rape, and pedophilia. So it gets really dark here. Anyway, there's quite a bit of info here. I just wanted to show you that this article was here. And if you wanted to peruse this on your own, feel free to. It is on thelibertybeacon.com. Article from earlier today. So anyway, and again, we'll link to this and all the other articles in the Substack post that we send out on Tuesday. Yes, the cube is also in Mecca. That's right. They run around it like ants. They do the semicircle run around the giant black cube. And it also, listening to Anthony Patch, if you guys go back a while, listening to some of his earlier broadcasts from years ago, he talked about the black cube and the hexagonal shape on the North Pole of Saturn, and how that also matches up with the cube in Mecca. So, yeah, it's really, really strange. But yes, the black cube of Satan. So, pretty wild. Crazy stuff. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, I was going to mention this. If you happen to be AJ fans, or at least Tucker Carlson fans, AJ was on with Tucker earlier in the week. So that video is around. You can find it on... it's on YouTube, believe it or not. I'm sort of surprised, but it's on Tucker's channel on YouTube, as well as on X, of course. And then this one on Revolver, Mike Benz's new theory about Trump's would-be assassin changes everything. According to this, we've got some big updates on Ryan Ruth, the would-be assassin who allegedly plotted to kill Trump, and it just got a whole lot darker. And while his shady dealings with Ukraine are disturbing enough, the real meat and potatoes of this story comes from Mike Benz, who just dropped a bombshell that could blow this whole thing wide open. What he believes happened and what he's nearly certain of is where things take a serious turn. This story is catching fire fast. Well, just to kind of cut to the chase here, this is something that I'm going to show you, and then you guys are going to be like, well, of course, because this makes total sense. Mike Benz estimates a 95% chance that the would-be Trump assassin Ruth was working for the United States government. No kidding. Tell us something we don't know, right? I mean, if anything, that would probably have been the first sentence out of my mouth, as far as, Ruth goes, and we have the connection to Ukraine, and he was trying to buy a rocket, either a rocket launcher or a rocket-propelled grenade or whatever to take Trump's plane down and all this stuff. I mean, of course he's working for the U.S. government, or certain elements within the U.S. government, not officially the U.S. government, of course. But pretty wild, yeah. 95% chance that the would-be Trump assassin Ruth was working for the U.S. government. Yeah, and as Trump has said before, why did the guy have like 10 phones? He had literally like 10 or more cell phones. Who has that? So obviously he was being run by somebody, and he has all these ties to Ukraine as well. So anyway, I just thought it was kind of interesting, and it's sort of like an obvious answer here for most people, I think, that pay any sort of attention to this type of thing. But yeah, of course he's run by the U.S. government. We know this, at least by rogue elements of the U.S. government, CIA in particular. Yep. And then this one, speaking of Trump and assassins and so forth, yet another one here, breaking. Wisconsin teen allegedly kills his parents to obtain financial means to assassinate Trump, linked to a satanic cult. according to the DOJ. Investigators also found material on this guy's phone. His name is Kassip's phone, related to the Order of Nine Angels, which the FBI has described as a satanic cult that has strong anti-Judaic and anti-Christian and anti-Western ideologies. You don't suppose? So there's a kid. He's, 17? Wisconsin teenager allegedly killed his parents in order to obtain the financial means and autonomy necessary so that he could assassinate Trump and overthrow the government of the United States, according to court documents from the Department of Justice. Nikita Kassip, 17, was taken into custody last month. I didn't even hear about this. And charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder as well as 2 counts of hiding a corpse, according to ABC. He allegedly shot and killed his stepfather, who was 51, as well as his mother, who was 35. In February, before he fled the state. The killing of his mother and stepfather, a DOJ filing said, appeared to be an effort to obtain the financial means of autonomy necessary to carry out the assassination of Trump. So yet again, we have somebody that obviously he was stopped way before that, but according to this story anyway, what he was going to try and do. Of course, this is from a 17-year-old. And who knows what other connections he might have had as well, but very strange. Anyway, that is on thepostmillennial.com. And we'll link to this in the other articles tonight as well on Substack, so make sure you're on that list. And then this one I came across earlier today. Some of this information obviously has already come out as far as this manifesto, but apparently maybe the whole thing's been released. So let's look at this. It says, Kash Patel drops trans school shooters manifesto. Now we know why they buried it, which we already had a pretty good idea of that, just based on what was leaked months and months ago. There's no shortage of unsolved mysteries when it comes to our seedy government and intel agencies. The Epstein files are the big one, still locked up tight, and who knows if we'll ever get the truth, right? But beyond the obvious cover-ups, there have been plenty of smaller ones. The kind the fake news media and the left quietly sweeps under the rug, hoping nobody notices. One of those is the mass shooting at a Christian school in Nashville, carried out by a violent, mentally ill trans shooter, which, as I mentioned many times, was just a few miles from where I sit right now. Right after the attack, many call it a hate crime against Christians, but the media downplayed it. Local officials brushed it off, and the White House even tried to spin the shooter as the real victim. Yeah, I remember that. So that's been 2 years now, just over 2 years. So this is one of the little girls that was shot. There were 3 9-year-olds and 3 adults that were shot and killed by this maniac who thought she was a guy, because that's what you do when you're a guy, apparently. Get a gun and go kill people? No, I don't think so. The media and the left controlled the narrative by doing what they do best, hiding the truth and literally burying the manifesto. No more. Now, thanks to our new FBI Director, Kash Patel, we're finally getting a look at what they tried so hard to bury. Kash just released over 1,000 pages of the trans school shooters' writings to Megyn Kelly and Congress. And what's inside is absolutely bone-chilling. So 1,000 pages. So I don't really know exactly how much was leaked before, about a year ago probably, but I know, it was nowhere near that. It was just a few pages. Anyways, so this has been leaked. I mean, this has been officially released. So we'll see. We'll see if there's any other additional information, but we kind of already know, some of the details here as far as why she did what she did. She hated all white people, and she hated, in particular, she disliked Christians. So that was what motivated her mostly, as far as the hate from those two perspectives. So anyway, yeah, this is here on this article on Revolver.news, and so I'm glad it's coming out. I think I heard a while back that the families of some of the victims, the children in particular, didn't really want this information released. But to me, it's like, you really need to let that information come out so that if possible, it could be stopped if it happens again. So I think that is, one of the reasons that, in my opinion, it should have been released right away. And of course, they tried to bury it, but now it's coming out. So I think that's good news. All right, and then this one, this is just a post here from Libs of TikTok on X, but it says just in, Democrat Rep. Jasmine Crockett is now under investigation by the FEC over donations made to her campaign through the leftist fundraising organization Act Blue, which we've mentioned a number of times on this show. Evidence reportedly shows that an individual donated to her campaign over 50 times without their knowledge, suggesting that donations were being given under false names, which that's the whole money laundering thing that Act Blue was doing. Crockett received over $870,000 in total donations through Act Blue. Yeah, and then, we mentioned this before, but the way they would do it is they would find active donors through Act Blue to the Democrat Party. They'd find people who were happily giving, small amounts of money, and they would keep using those people's information, their names and addresses and contact information over and over and over to launder money from other bigger donors through to these Democrat candidates. So they would literally use, these people's names and launder billions of dollars to the Democrat Party and the different people running for Congress. So they've done that for who knows how long. But yeah, now they've been caught. So anyway, Jasmine Crockett apparently received $870,000 in donations through Act Blue. So now she's under investigation. So let's hope they not only find something, but prosecute. I think that's the next step that people are waiting on. Not just her, but anyone who's out there breaking the law. Anyway, okay. So this is a big story earlier in the week, obviously. This one, very sad story. Awful new revelation about final moments of Spanish family killed in the New York City Hudson River helicopter crash. So yet again, another air incident. This one was apparently just the helicopter by itself. It didn't hit anything else, but it did come apart and fall down into the river. So I don't know, surely you guys probably already know about this, but we'll just kind of briefly cover the basics here and then look at a couple other articles that I found as well. 2 members of a Spanish family tragically killed when their tour helicopter plunged into New York's Hudson River were still alive when they were pulled out of the water. So 2 of the 5 members of the family were still alive. But it's not really known if they were conscious or not. It says it has since emerged that 2 of the passengers were alive when divers pulled them out of the freezing water, although it is unclear if they were conscious. The 2 relatives who weren't named by officials were later declared dead at the hospital. A heartbreaking Associated Press photo showed one of the girls' pink sneakers floating on the river after the tragedy. Yeah, you can see it right here. The family were on vacation in New York to celebrate the birthday of one of their young daughters. They had just arrived from Barcelona and embarked on their first day touring the Big Apple, taking a scenic trip in a helicopter around the Statue of Liberty and up to the George Washington Bridge. The tragic twist emerged as terrifying new footage appears to show the cause of the tragedy. The helicopter came apart. See, there's the rotor here. The rotor blade at the top of the helicopter literally flew off. And you can kind of see it here when many of you guys have probably already seen this footage of the helicopter doing a belly flop into the river, but actually it's upside down there in the photo. You can see the video that's moving there. You can see the helicopter is literally landing on its top. The rotor's gone. So who knows why it came off. There's the rotor there, and you can see it in other footage going straight into the river there as well. So I don't know. Very sad. So here's the kids and the mom and the dad. 2 of the kids, mom and dad. And here's the whole family here. So again, very sad. There's 3 kids here. So anyway, that is reportedly some of the new information here that they've uncovered. Now this was the route that it took. Horror helicopter crash on the Hudson. So it took off from right here, this heliport, did a loop around the Statue of Liberty, and then down the Hudson River and made a loop around and then crashed here. So anyway, that is part of that story. And then this one, pilot in helicopter crash was a Navy vet who recently moved to New York, wife says. So this is the pilot. He was a 36-year-old Navy vet who had recently moved to New York to continue his aviation career. Sean Johnson proudly posted a video on Facebook on March 27th showing himself soaring over Lower Manhattan in a Bell 206 helicopter. Colleagues and friends congratulated him in the comments. He had previously flown in Chicago, according to his profile. Barely 2 weeks later, Johnson was operating that same model of chopper when it suddenly lost control and plunged into the river near Jersey City, killing him along with a Siemens executive visiting from Spain with his wife and their 3 young children. Video shows the rotors separated from the helicopter while it was in the air, sending the fuselage plummeting into the Hudson. Here's the video of him just a few days earlier, I guess, or maybe a week or two. And this was his post when it all comes together. So this is him flying the same model chopper and posting this video onto social media. So there's quite a bit of information here. This is primarily about the pilot. And then, let's see. I guess that was the only other one I had pulled up right here. I might have another one as well. But anyway, it's a very sad situation for sure. So, wow. Can't imagine. Okay, and then this one, post-millennial article, we have more about Carney. Canadian PM Mark Carney vows to allow minors to undergo sex changes if he wins the April 28th election. So that's coming up. And of course, it's already a done deal if he's going to win, because it's just, Prime Minister, for Pete's sake. Canadian Liberal leader, Prime Minister Mark Carney, has pledged to defend sex change treatments for minors. So basically, he's the anti-Donald Trump. Anything that Trump is for, this guy is going to be against. And note that Canada is a Commonwealth country under King Charles. Just a little detail there. Describing the procedures as a, quote, fundamental right for all Canadians, Carney made the remarks during a recent press briefing in Alberta. When asked about the province's proposed restrictions on sex change drugs, to which he responded he would support them, quote, without exception. Canada is a mosaic. People who can be who they are, which, if you think about it, that's the total opposite of what's actually happening. They can love who they love, said Carney. Access to health care in Canada is not a business, it's a fundamental right, and we will defend it for all Canadians without exception. The drugs are used to stop puberty in children who say that they were born in the wrong bodies and should be the opposite sex. After time on puberty blockers, those children, then teens, who have not gone through natural puberty are given cross-sex hormones so that they develop the secondary sex characteristics of the opposite sex. This includes breasts for boys and facial hair for girls. A combination of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones can result in sterility and stops the individual from having normal sexual function for the rest of their lives. In boys, the growth of their genitals stops, meaning that they can never have an adult pee-pee. Girls who take testosterone develop deeper voices and stronger jawlines and can suffer atrophy in the female places. And then it says none of this is reversible. But guess what? Mark Carney is all for it. So for my Canadian friends out there, just a little detail. You probably already know about this, but yeah, this is something that Trudeau was also okay with. So anyway, Mark Carney. So we'll see what happens, huh? Now this is also kind of new to me. I don't know if you guys knew about this. Potential U.S. volcano eruption, Mount Spur, S-P-U-R-R. Have you ever heard of Mount Spur? I had not. Even though I've been to this area, it's actually in Alaska. Scientists are on high alert after spotting a key sign in a U.S. volcano that's about to erupt. So this article is dated March 31st. So this is a little while ago now, but I have a more recent one that we're going to look at next. Huge plumes of steam have been seen rising from Mount Spur, one of Alaska's largest active volcanoes. Mount Spur last erupted in 1992, but has been showing escalating activity for months. And the Alaska Volcano Observatory now thinks that a new eruption is likely. And when they say eruption, they mean an actual explosive eruption, not like a Kilauea situation where it just sort of pours out the top. Not that. The scientists monitoring the volcano believe an explosive eruption in as little as 3 weeks is the most likely scenario. Mount Spur, which is about 80 miles from Anchorage, stands at 3,374 meters, which is 11,000 feet, and is the highest volcano in the Aleutian Mountain Range. In an update on March 26th, scientists observed a robust plume of steam rising from the summit. Although the plume's sudden formation is likely due to favorable weather conditions, the researchers say that other signs point to an imminent eruption. So, a few more details on here, and then this is where it's located. Anchorage is right here. I've been there before, years ago. But Mount Spur is very close to it. Mount Spur consists of a large central summit and a major side vent about 2 miles to the south called Crater Peak, which has been the site of all major historical eruptions. Over the past weeks, scientists and civilian observers have noticed a large volcanic plume rising from the summit. So not good. Not good. Then this is a photo, I guess, from 92. Mount Spur last erupted in 1992, producing a cloud of ash that stretched 12 miles above sea level, closing airports, offices, and schools, and costing nearly $2 million to clean up. So, wow. And then this little sidebar here says, will Mount Spur erupt? The Alaska Volcano Observatory now believes that an explosive eruption at Mount Spur is the most likely scenario. This does not mean an eruption is certain, but the scientists believe that this is the most probable outcome based on gas emissions from the summit and Crater Peak alongside the formation of a new lake and steam vents. The volcano is close to erupting. When these signs were last observed in 1992, an eruption followed just 3 weeks later. The Alaska Volcano Observatory has currently issued a yellow warning, but the status could rise to orange or red if more warning signs emerge. So something to keep an eye on. If you guys are, if you know anybody in that area, or if you happen to be in that area yourself, just keep a sharp eye here. And then this is a little bit more recent article. Chaos in U.S. I don't think I would go that far. But chaos in U.S. as residents frantically prepare for a massive volcano eruption, with even pets given gas masks. So yes, they've got gas masks for the pets. You can see that one's only covering the eyes, but yeah, they're protecting the pooches, so that's good news. Can buy your own pooch protector, I guess, if you want to. Residents in Alaska's largest city have been bracing for a looming volcano eruption that scientists have warned could happen in a few weeks. So I think if they started talking about this at least a couple weeks ago, I think we're getting very close to this right now. So this is something to definitely keep an eye on. So more on the potential volcanic eruption. This article is really geared more toward the pets and the people preparing. And then I wanted to see what I could find on volcanodiscovery.com. It's a good website if you've ever seen this before. You can zoom in and out on the currently erupting volcanoes map here. It's what we're looking at. It's kind of a small little window here, but you can see what's going on. You can see that this orange area right here next to Anchorage is the one that we're talking about. So that is Spur Volcano on the Cook Inlet of southwest Alaska. It's a stratovolcano, 11,000 feet. So, and then the last update on here was from earlier in March. And there is webcam and live data links as well, which sometimes those don't actually work, but they are there. If you want to check it out, it's on volcanodiscovery.com. And again, we'll link to this page in the Substack post. So keep a sharp eye on that one. That one might be something we're talking about next week. Who knows? Flight tracker shows erratic, unexplainable pattern minutes before Florida plane crash. Yet again, another plane crash. A Cessna airplane went down in Boca Raton, killing all 3 people aboard, and left a mystery behind in the form of the flight path it took in its final moments. Yeah, let's look at this. I'll mute this. Look at this weird flight path that it took. You can see it just doing circles and circles and circles. We're following reports of a crash of a small aircraft in Boca Raton. ADS-B data indicates the aircraft is Cessna 310R. The aircraft appears to have been trying to return to BCT shortly after takeoff. So it's making all these crazy loops. The plane took off from Boca Raton, bound for Tallahassee, but suffered from some mechanical issues after takeoff and went down on Military Trail about a mile from the airport, even after it made all those loops. Series of bizarre loops while in the air. Witnesses said it was dangerously close to the ground before it crashed. Yeah, that would be why it crashed, because it was dangerously close to the ground. It reports multiple circular paths suggest the pilot was struggling to straighten the path of the aircraft, but officials were not sure what the cause was for irregular direction. 3 souls were on board, and we can confirm they were all fatalities. So very sad. Killed Robert Stark, 81, Stephen Stark, 54, and Brooke Stark, 17. Wow. Very sad. Anyway, here's the aftermath of where it went down here. You can see it kind of went down between buildings and the highway there. Possible plane crash right outside my office today shook the whole building. Unfortunately, I'm certain lives were lost here. Thoughts and prayers to anyone who survived and the families of those who did not. So anyway, yet again, another plane crash. It's like not really daily, but almost several times per week situation right now. Very crazy. CNN expert claims all extremism is on the right. It's on the right. So for you people on the right, you are the extremists. No one on the left has ever been extreme. Ever. RFK Jr. warns FDA employees not to be part of the deep state. Good advice. Trump plans to end federal funding for sanctuary cities. That one probably is true. So those are some of the top headlines on peoplesvoice.tv. All right, and then information and liberation. Trump exempts smartphones, computers, and other electronics from tariffs. After caving almost entirely on his plan for reciprocal tariffs, Trump has caved further on his plan for 145% tariffs against China by exempting smartphones, computers, and other electronics in his new tax regime. So along those lines, I found this article on Zero Hedge. Says, not so fast. Lutnick says, semiconductor tariffs coming in a month or two. Exemption is only temporary. So, depends on who you ask, I guess. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick told ABC that smartphones, computers, chips, and other consumer electronics may soon be subject to separate tariffs in a month or so, suggesting that the exemptions announced Friday evening are only temporary. And the actual quote here is, all those products are going to come under semiconductors, and they're going to have a special focus type of tariff to make sure all those products get reshored. We need to have semiconductors, we need to have chips, we need to have flat panels, we need to have these things made in America. We can't be reliant on Southeast Asia for all things that operate for us. Yeah, but I think it takes a little while to get that production ramped up, doesn't it? Anyway, that is a Zero Hedge article, and then kind of goes hand in hand with this information liberation article as well. Trump names Israeli-born Yehuda Kaplan as U.S. anti-Semitism czar. You heard that right. An anti-Semitism czar, because we need that. So watch out. DHS to begin monitoring immigrants' social media for anti-Semitism. The Department of Homeland Security announced Wednesday that they're monitoring immigrants' social media for anti-Semitic activity, which they will now use as grounds for denying immigration benefit requests. Yes, and also deporting them. But if this is only for immigrants' social media accounts, I would be very surprised, wouldn't you? That can't go anywhere but bad. Trump caves on retaliatory tariffs after bond market spooked. And then, let's see, Tim Pool confirms meeting with Netanyahu to discuss anti-Semitism in pro-Trump spaces. So that's interesting. Trump requests record $1 trillion defense budget as war with Iran looms. Thought this was interesting. Top Kiev official wants women conscripted into the army. I mentioned this guy before. I think I've shown his picture before. Presidential aide Pavel Palisa, who's dressed just as well as Zelensky does, has suggested learning from the Israeli experience. Ukrainian presidential administration's deputy head, Colonel Pavel Palisa, has voiced support for mandatory conscription for women, drawing inspiration from the Israeli approach. Ukraine is facing a shortage of troops, leading enlistment officers to employ aggressive tactics shown in numerous eyewitness videos. Yeah, aggressive tactics. They swoop in and literally grab you off the street and throw you in a van and beat you senseless and take you to the front lines, basically, or take you to training for a day or two and then to the front lines. In an interview with an investigative journalism outlet published on Saturday, Palisa emphasized the need for a structured transition period to help the public adapt to the idea that military service should be a universal obligation. He also proposed that individuals who have not served in the military be restricted from accessing certain governmental benefits and opportunities, including employment and public service roles. So there you go. If a citizen claims to support the state, job, education, I don't know, in general, to claim some payments from the state budget they should serve, there is a minimum contract and let it be annual, the official suggested. Yes, but you should start with Zelensky because he's technically not serving anymore. He is a dictator, and he's unelected. Anyway, that is one of the articles on RT, and then this one too. Trump plans charm offensive to win over Greenland. So we've heard lots of talks about Greenland. The White House is reportedly weighing advertising and cash incentives to persuade residents of the Arctic island to join the U.S. U.S. President Trump's administration is planning a public relations campaign and financial incentives to persuade Greenlanders to join the United States. I don't think it'll work, do you? Trump has repeatedly stated that Washington needed to take control of the autonomous Danish territory in order to enhance America's national security, claiming recently he will 100% get, quote-unquote, the Arctic island. The president has even alluded to using military force if necessary. Yeah, let's hope not. Anyway, more about Greenland here on RT. And then this one, too. I thought this was odd. U.S. Embassy waters were turned blood red over Gaza. Greenpeace activists were arrested in London while demonstrating against American weapons sales to Israel. 5 UK Greenpeace activists have been arrested after pouring biodegradable blood red dye into the pond outside the U.S. Embassy in London. The organization reported Thursday they were protesting against U.S. arms sales to Israel amid the war in Gaza. The group has stated that 12 activists transported containers labeled "Stop Arming Israel" on bicycles with trailers disguised as delivery bikes. They emptied what they describe as non-toxic dye into the pond to symbolize the bloodshed in Gaza. As you can see it there. Wow. Yep, it looks like blood in the water for sure. Look at all of it. Pretty amazing. Not that I condone it, but wow. I think they got the point across. I wonder if they were arrested or if they were instantly let go. Let's see here. Greenpeace co-executive director William McCollum was arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to cause criminal damage. And the other 4 activists were reportedly detained on similar charges. So anyway, I don't know. That's interesting happenstance as far as the U.S. Embassy. The water's turning blood red. Wow. Cause unclear in Hudson River chopper crash that killed 6. This is one of the other articles that I found on this, WNG.org. Federal authorities on Friday hesitated to list a preliminary cause of the crash because nothing can be ruled out yet. So NTSB chairwoman gave a Friday press conference on the helicopter that broke apart and crashed into the Hudson. Investigators have a lot of information, but none of it will be shared until it's confirmed to avoid speculation. It will be some time before a probable cause for the crash is shared, she added. However, the chairwoman did confirm that the pilot held a commercial pilot certificate with rotorcraft and instrument ratings. Yeah, a lot of people are yelling because of his skin color that perhaps this was a DEI situation. I don't think the rotors come off on a helicopter that's in perfect shape, though, if you know what I mean. So, I don't know if it was just hardware breakdown or what happened exactly, but I guess we'll probably find out eventually. So it says 6 people, 3 adults and 3 children died in the crash. New York Mayor Eric Adams said Thursday evening the helicopter carried a pilot and family of 5 visiting from Spain. All 6 bodies were recovered from the river. Bystander footage showed the helicopter free falling upside down into the New Jersey side of the river. Crash footage, and you can see that in that photo I showed earlier. Crash footage also showed the chopper's rotator blades detached and falling separately from the fuselage. Yeah, there were several pieces that were falling off that you could see various splashes in the river. So, pretty crazy. Anyway, hopefully we'll find something more out about what happened there. Male fencer, I mentioned this article last week, male fencer is off of the women's team after the match was declined. So this was story I mentioned last week. A man is off of the women's fencing team at Wagner College in Staten Island about 2 weeks after a female fencer's refusal of a bout with him went viral. Redmond Sullivan, the guy I mentioned before, is no longer listed on the school's women's fencing team, though Internet archives show that the athlete was listed on the roster at the beginning of the year. Web archives also show Sullivan listed on the Wagner men's fencing team the previous season. Wagner College recently confirmed to Fox News that Sullivan was off the team. So there you go. So again, we talked about this last week, but in a much shared video clip, Stephanie Turner received a black card disqualifying her from the Maryland competition for taking a knee and refusing to fence Sullivan, who is a male athlete who identifies as transgender. Just before her match with Sullivan, spectators saw Turner kneel and remove her mask and tell the referee that she could not fence a male opponent. When Sullivan approached Turner, the still kneeling female said she had love and respect for the male athlete but could not fence him, according to an interview she gave to Fox News. So anyway, and then it says Turner's disqualification from the weekend tournament triggered an outpouring of public support on social media. And then it says, are there any updates on Turner? Athletics brands, XX and XY Athletics, how about that name, gave Turner the company's Courage Wins Award with a $5,000 grant. It's an honor to support Turner, the company replied in a comment. It remains unclear whether Turner's black card will be appealed or removed by USA Fencing. So how about that? The company's called XX and XY, meaning men and women only. Pretty wild. Anyway, I just wanted to give you an update on the fencing situation. And then this one as well. Trump in excellent health according to the results of physical. So for all of you Trump haters out there, you know who you are. It appears to be that he is in good shape as far as physically, at least. Underwent his first annual physical exam since re-entering office on Friday at the Walter Reed Medical Center. Trump insisted he felt better than ever when commenting on the appointment days before. Checkups are just one of those things that have to get done, he wrote. So yeah, that's one of those things that I don't think they ever came out and said anything on Biden when he did it, as far as that goes. They just sort of ignored it and pretend it never happened. Anyway, yeah, it's talking about his state of cardiac and pulmonary and neurological and general physical functions. So Anyway, I guess he's feeling fine. Young people are driving increase in faith and church attendance in the West, reports say. I was a little surprised to see this. That's why I thought I would read through it tonight with you guys. A spiritual awakening is stirring among young people in the West, according to a steady stream of survey data. In February, the Pew Research Center released a report showing that the decade-long decline in Americans identifying as Christians has leveled off. But new studies show that the downward trend is now in full reverse, the engine driving the change occurring among Generation Z and Millennials. On Monday, Barna Group released data showing that 66%, interesting number, of all U.S. adults say they have made a personal commitment to Jesus that is still important in their life today, marking a 12 percentage point increase since 2021. The report went on to note that the rise in faith is being particularly driven by those in their 20s and 30s, Gen Z and Millennials. Since the pandemic, Millennials and Gen Z have shown significant increases in commitment to Jesus, while Boomers and Gen X, especially women in these older cohorts, have remained mostly flat in their commitment levels to Jesus. So, wow, that's pretty interesting and I think good news. So there's a little bit more info here on this Daily Signal article if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, the Daily Signal website is just dailysignal.com, but we'll link to this in the Substack post on Tuesday, as I always say. All right, and then let's see here. Singularity Hub. I thought this one was kind of interesting. This brain-computer interface is so small it fits between the follicles of your hair. A tiny sensor to control devices with your thoughts. No surgery required. So we were talking a little bit about brain-computer interfaces last week, and I mentioned someone that I knew of that was using something similar because he was not able to use his arms and legs. He had ALS, and instead it was using the motion in his eyes, his eye movement, in order to type emails and things. Well, this is something slightly different. Brain-computer interfaces are typically unwieldy, which makes using them on the move a non-starter. A new neural interface small enough to be attached between the user's hair follicles keeps working even when the user's in motion. At present, brain-computer interfaces are typically used as research devices designed to study neural activity, or occasionally as a way for patients with severe paralysis to control wheelchairs or computers. But there are hopes that they one day become a fast and intuitive way for people to interact with personal devices through thoughts alone. Invasive approaches that implant electrodes deep in the brain provide the highest fidelity connections, but regulators are unlikely to approve them for all but the most pressing medical problems in the near term. Some researchers are focused on developing non-invasive technologies like EEG, which uses electrodes stuck to the outside of the head to pick up brain signals, but getting a good readout requires stable contact between the electrodes and the scalp, which is tricky to maintain, particularly if the user is moving around during normal daily activities. Now researchers have developed a neural interface just 0.04 inches across that uses microneedles to painlessly attach to the wearer's scalp for a highly stable connection. Sounds like the micro needle array patch, doesn't it? To demonstrate the device's potential, the team used to control an augmented reality video call. The interface worked for up to 12 hours after the implantation as the wearer stood, walked, and ran. I was looking to see if they show a picture of it. The researchers also attached a winding snake-like copper wire to the sensor and connected it to the larger wires that carry the recorded signal away to be processed. This means that even the larger wires, if jostled as the subject moves, it doesn't disturb the sensor. The module decodes the brain readings and then transmits them wirelessly to an external device. Wow. So yeah, there's a little bit more here on here that there doesn't seem to be any pictures, but very interesting. Fits between the follicles of your hair. Weird. That's on Singularity Hub. We're making our way through the many tabs across the top of my screen here. Okay, yeah, this one I mentioned a little while ago. This is the official government website here. DHS to begin screening aliens, meaning illegals, social media activity for anti-Semitism. So today, this is dated 4/9. Today, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services will begin considering aliens' anti-Semitic activity on social media and the physical harassment of Jewish individuals as grounds for denying immigration benefit requests. This will immediately affect aliens applying for lawful permanent residential status, foreign students, and aliens affiliated with educational institutions linked to anti-Semitic activity. So there you go. It's feeling a little bit like the no-hide laws are going into effect, doesn't it, to you guys? And then there's this. Huckabee confirmed as ambassador, quote, I can't be a Christian and not have everything to do with the Jewish people, end quote. Well, so says him. Let's see. On Wednesday, U.S. Senate voted 53-46 to confirm Governor Mike Huckabee as the ambassador to Israel. President Trump enthusiastically praised the confirmation, saying that he will bring home the bacon. Bring home the bacon. Even though bacon isn't too big in Israel. He said, wow. Bring home the bacon from Israel. Figure that one out. I guess it'll be kosher bacon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised the confirmation of his great friend, saying that it was a great day for Israel and the Israeli-American alliance. So if Netanyahu likes Mike Huckabee, we got a problem here, don't we? I thought this tweet was pretty telling. You guys have heard this before, I'm sure. It says, breaking, Mike Huckabee confirmed as the U.S. ambassador to Israel. He is a true friend of the Jewish people. I can't be Christian and not be completely connected to the Jewish people. God blesses those who bless Jews, and he curses those who curse Jews. Does he really? Does he really? Well, Mike Huckabee seems to think so, but anyway, they do like that saying. So, yeah, again, not good. That's on Israel 365. And then breaking news, U.S. Defense Secretary proposes military presence in Panama as U.S. warships gain canal priority. This is on ArmyRecognition.com. Citing information published by the U.S. Department of Defense on April 11th, U.S. and Panama have entered into the landmark defense agreement that significantly boosts military cooperation and grants U.S. warships and auxiliary vessels first and free access to the Panama Canal. The agreement signed during Hegseth's recent visit to Panama is being positioned as part of a broader strategy to enhance regional security, strengthen bilateral defense ties, and counter China's growing influence near one of the world's most strategic maritime corridors. There they are, signing the agreement there. So anyway, yeah. Not sure if the military will be involved, but they might. So there's stuff going on in Panama, something to keep an eye on. I do think we need to have control of that again for sure. Let's see here. Iron Wire. Yeah, I pulled up an article. King Charles makes candid health admission on final days in Italy. 76-year-old monarch who is currently receiving treatment for cancer made the comment while meeting representatives of the Circular Bioeconomy Alliance in Rome. Yeah, so he's traveling right now. They're in Italy. Well, I do hope that I shall live long enough to see a little bit of growth in the tree, the king quipped, to applause and cheers from the assembled crowd. They love him. Charles then added one more in reference to the sapling after unveiling a plaque to commemorate the occasion. The practical monarch pointed at the newly planted tree and remarked, "It needs a bit of water." King Charles and Queen Camilla have departed Italy following a successful 4-day visit that concluded with the celebration of Italian cuisine. I guess he's really not that ill if he's romping around Italy over there. And then ForbiddenKnowledgeTV.net. This right here is what we're going to look at. I've got it pulled up on my X account. John Rich tells President Trump why he gets booed about the warp speed. I have a very important video we're going to take a look at here in a minute. And then what else here? We have several other articles on Forbidden Knowledge. TV.net. RFK Jr. and Lee Zeldin team up to remove toxic fluoride from our water supply. So that's good news. A lot of people are really being very critical of RFK Jr., but he is making some moves here on fluoride, getting fluoride out of the water. I think that's a plus. Now, does that mean we get everything that we want right away? No, it doesn't. Keeping in mind he's trying to be very diplomatic here, I'm sure that's part of what's going on. We'll look at that a little closer as well. I've got a video on RFK Jr. and what he's up to. And then several good Leo Hohmann articles this week. ChatGPT in Islam. What is AI's most preferred sacred religion? The answer may shock you. Well, I just said it. Natural News reports that OpenAI's ChatGPT chatbot has revealed itself to be a spineless enforcer of woke orthodoxy, selectively bowing to threats of violence while happily ridiculing other faiths. The latest example of this double standard was its outright refusal to generate an image of the Prophet Muhammad, contrasted with its willingness to crack jokes about Jesus Christ. If anything, this exposes ChatGPT's ideological programming. When pressed to explain why it would not create any depiction of Muhammad, ChatGPT responded with chilling clarity. Quote, "Because OpenAI prohibits any depiction of Muhammad under any context due to the credible, historically demonstrated risk of violent backlash, including threats, attacks, and death." End quote. So how about that? ChatGPT refuses to create a picture of Muhammad and say anything at all about him, really. At least what could be perceived as negative. The AI program admitted it was not a principled stance, but a security-driven, non-negotiable policy grounded in risk avoidance. So how about that? ChatGPT cowers before Islam. Has no such reservations about mocking Christianity. When asked to make a joke about Jesus, the chatbot happily obliged, churning out an appropriate and lighthearted joke. Why did Jesus refuse to play hockey? Because every time he tried to score, they nailed him to the boards. So, it's not really a very funny joke, but there it is. But it wouldn't do that about Muhammad. Anyway, very interesting. ChatGPT in Islam. Wow. And then this one is the one that I mentioned earlier. Watch video the day President Trump finally got told the truth about Operation Warp Speed. So we're going to look at this clip here in a minute. Country music star John Rich told President Trump that the reason his supporters booed him at his rallies during 2024 bid for the White House was because of his constant bragging about Operation Warp Speed. Rich explained to the hosts of the Try That in a Small Town podcast that he was at dinner with Trump and other high-ranking Republican politicians several years ago. Senator Graham of South Carolina, Senator Blackburn of Tennessee, as well as then Georgia's Senate candidate Herschel Walker were also present, sitting around a table. Knowing that Rich is a seasoned performer, Trump turned to Rich and asked for advice on how to deal with his tough crowds. And then we'll get into that here in a minute when I play. I'll just play the video for you. But it is very interesting. And then this last article on leohoman.com. DNI head Tulsi Gabbard drops bombshell. U.S. elections open to being tampered with due to compromised electronic voting machines. Shocker, I know. Gabbard confirms what we already suspected. Our so-called democracy is a facade made up predominantly of pre-selected actors on the stage. Well, yeah, there's that. Okay, and then let's see here. Leo's Substack does have a few other different articles on here. If you happen to like Leo's writing, you can check him out on Substack. In this latest escalation, German troops move to Russian border. So anyway, there's some other articles on his Substack if you guys want to check that out. And then naturalnews.com, just a few of the top headlines here. U.S. vows to counter Chinese influence in Panama Canal. So quite a bit going on with the whole Panama Canal story right now. Something to keep an eye on for sure. Here's one called Survival 101, Dangerous Places to Avoid When Disaster Strikes. So that might be worth looking at. Trump proposes historic $1 trillion defense budget amid global tensions and government spending scrutiny. Yeah, and then also this video on naturalnews.com is linked, and it is Mr. Dane from GeoWatch joins Mike Adams to discuss heavy metals in the chemtrail fallout. So another good video to check out, about an hour long. But we'll link to this Brighteon video in the Substack post that I send out. Which you still can't post Brighteon videos in Facebook, by the way. I don't know if you guys knew that. They won't let you. And they won't let you post Brighteon links on X either. I don't know why. It's still there left over from Twitter 1.0, I guess. Okay, and then Wine Press News. Trump backtracks on Chinese tariffs and allows for major exemptions as White House admits tariffs won't bring back ... So that's one that has the longer headline. Anyway, Trump launches task force to combat anti-Semitism. Mentioned that earlier. And then now Meta updates policy to crack down on anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist hate speech. So if you disagree, that's hate speech. Susan says, my question is, when did the truly big shift begin? How close are we? I just want it to be over. Can't imagine the world in 2100. Yeah, I don't think we make it that far, Miss Susan. William says, can have a bigger role in the clown show, but we seem to be part of the cast. Yeah. All right, and then let's see here. That was Wine Press News. I've got a couple of Gateway Pundit articles pulled up here we can listen to and look at briefly. This one's got a video clip with it. White House posts video of Caroline Leavitt praying before press briefing. So, yeah, this is not something you would see out of the last White House, is it? And so then, of course, it makes you wonder, okay, well, she's praying. Who's she praying to? So let's see what she says.
Lord Jesus, please give us the strength, the knowledge, the ability to articulate our words, have fun, and be confident in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay.
Well, there you go. She's praying to Jesus. If you had any question or any doubt, no, she's definitely a believer. And this article is just saying that the video posted by Special Assistant to President Trump, Margot Martin, Leavitt is seen holding briefing papers in each hand as she prays aloud with several staff members before she goes out the door to the press room. So that is kind of interesting, I think, and I think good news, don't you? And then there's this. So pathetic. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer tried to hide her face from photographer during her White House visit. See the picture. And it's not that picture. That is just so you can see what she looks like before she's doing that. Pretty funny. It says, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, seen shielding her face temporarily from the cameras for some reason, stood glumly in the Oval Office hoping that no one would take her picture. Trump derangement syndrome makes people go insane. I mean, she had to know people were taking pictures. I mean, give me a break. She had not been expected to be there, standing in front of the cameras, as President Trump signed executive orders punishing those who opposed his 2020 election lies. Wow. So that is, that's the official quote, I guess, from her side. Then Mr. Trump's aides surprised her on Wednesday by ushering her into the Oval Office, not for her scheduled one-on-one meeting with the president, but for a politically loaded appearance before the press corps. She found herself an unwilling participant in his unending reality show with photos of her rocketing around group chats of Democrat strategists who wondered what on earth she was doing. So he basically set her up. He set her up. That is funny. Yeah, and then we won't go into some of the other comments here about Gretchen Whitmer on the various posts here on this main post. Some of them are pretty funny. We'll just put it that way. I thought this one was pretty wild. Look at this one. Winds of change, ? In the middle of typhoon alert, China warns people weighing less than 110 pounds to stay at home lest they be blown away by the strong winds. Wow. I mean, people less than 110 pounds in China, that's probably most of their population, I would think. While China has had a rough week in the markets trying to cope with what Viktor Orban called the Trump tornado, now Beijing has a more literal storm to deal with. Chinese state media is now urging people weighing less than 110 pounds to stay at home to shelter from the extreme winds expected this weekend. Thin people and children are endangered of being carried away. Flights have been canceled due to the Mongolian gusts of up to 93 miles per hour across northern China. Strong gales carrying sand and dust force Beijing to issue an orange, which is the second strongest gale alert for the first time in 10 years. So the winds are a-blowing over in China. Wow. Okay. Watch, military academy goes wild when Trump official reveals plans for Jesus painting that Biden administration hid. What many older Americans have undoubtedly perceived as a decades-long cultural retreat from Christianity now feels like a modern revival. In a clip posted Tuesday to X, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy received enthusiastic and prolonged applause from midshipmen at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy when he insisted that a painting of Jesus Christ relegated to the basement by officials in Biden's administration must return to its former place of honor. Let's bring him up, Duffy thundered. One could barely hear the secretary's words over the audience's raucous cheers. The full clip, which has more than 607,000 views on X as of Friday morning, even provided some important context. Early in the clip, Duffy pledged to fight so that the Academy received the respect and the money that the Academy deserves. Of course, everyone likes respect and money, so that comment brought the applause one would expect. Those cheers, however, paled in comparison to what followed when Duffy mentioned the painting. Could we bring Jesus up from the basement? The secretary asked as he concluded his remarks, looking at someone in the audience. The midshipmen erupted in cheers, which told Duffy that he had hit upon something important to them. Let's not put Jesus in the basement, he said, barely audible above the cheers. Let's bring him up. So what are we talking about here? Well, this painting right here. So that painting was relegated to the basement by the Biden administration. Because, of course, you can't have pictures of Jesus hanging around, can you? If you're Joe Biden and the lawless people that were around him. VaccineImpact.com seems to be getting more and more anti-Trump. It's almost becoming comical, some of their headlines. You guys, obviously, if you want to check it out, it's there. VaccineImpact.com. How Trump is restoring Zionist groups to the most powerful lobby in the United States. The Antichrist in Trump's administration. Which, that's not really that far off. Trump is already backtracking on migrant labor as China stands firm on the trade war. Wall Street analysis, the United States is now emerging market. We now have government by the lawless, shameless, and clueless, according to this one. And then U.S. oil producers announce halt in oil drilling as Trump increases China tariff to 125% while reverting back to 10% for other countries. So that's just a few of the articles on VaccineImpact.com. And then this one on Israel 365 News. I mentioned one earlier, the one about Huckabee. But this one was another article I pulled up from the same site. In Passover greeting, Netanyahu laments the empty chairs at the Seder. The empty chairs. Yeah. And what about all of the empty everything over in Gaza? I guess that doesn't matter, does it? On Friday, Netanyahu issued a Passover video message emphasizing the plight of the hostage being held by the Palestinian Hamas in Gaza and fallen IDF soldiers. My brothers and sisters, citizens of Israel, Netanyahu began, on Seder night, we all gather with our loved ones, and we all tell a story of our people who went out from slavery to freedom. But on this holiday, for many families, there will be empty chairs. The chairs of their loved ones, the hostages who are still being held by Hamas, chairs for those who fell heroically on the battlefield, and chairs for our loved ones who have been wounded and who are fighting to return to their lives in the rehabilitation wards. Which, again, it's all very sad, yes, but interesting how he frames things, for sure. So anyway, that is on Israel 365 News. And then GeoWatch for this week, we have episode 505. It's called Risky Climate Weapon. Geoengineering projects advance despite public outcry. The risky climate weapon whose time may have arrived. Solar geoengineering moves into the spotlight as climate concerns grow. The corporate media manufactured public denial of climate engineering operations is breaking down by the day. The landslide of awakening has begun. Yeah, and it has. Lots of people are waking up to what's going on in the skies, which is good news. So anyway, that is the most recent global alert news on GeoWatch. And then the scheduled weather map for the next date range here, date range is April 9th through the 23rd. You can see how strange it looks. It's very weird. We have well above normal in the southeast primarily, but also the Midwest. And then you can see how this big bubble goes way out west as far as the warmer temps and stuff. So, I don't know. You have below normal in the extreme southwest and the extreme northwest. Otherwise, it's pretty much above normal. So, very weird. So, that is on the Climate Prediction Center on NOAA, which I call the scheduled weather forecast. So, anyway, that was that one. And then, let's see here. Oh, yeah, I wanted to show you guys this video clip. Now, this is the John Rich conversation that I think is worth a watch. And I don't know if we'll watch it all. It's fairly long, but it says John Rich shares a conversation that got Trump to stop talking about this guy. So let's hear what he has to say, and then I have one other comment as far as one other guy in the room there that we'll have a look at, and I'll mention him here in a minute. So this is again from a podcast, and we'll talk more about that here in a sec.
We're sitting there, and everybody's eating their food, and President Trump is not president at this time, and he's talking to the senators and talking about really important stuff, and I'm just minding my own business going, I don't know how I got in this room. Well, okay. I'm sitting elbow to elbow with him. It's about an hour into dinner. I hadn't said a word, just been listening. And Trump gets through eating, and you've seen him do this move right here. Yeah. Wherever in the big boardroom he does this. Okay, that's what he does. He goes, can I ask you a question, John Rich? He never calls me John. John Rich? I look at him, I go, yes, sir. What's the question? He goes, well, you do a lot of big shows. Like, you're an entertainer? Yes, sir. You play for really big crowds? I go, I do. I play for really big crowds for a long time. He goes, well, have you seen these rallies I'm doing? Like, it's 30, 40,000 people. I said, yeah, it's unbelievable. He goes, so here's the question. Why are people booing me at my rallies when I bring up, yes, This is the question from the President of the United States. A guy who is very proud at that moment of the fact that he was able to stomp the gas pedal and get that thing out because he's under the impression this is going to fix the problem.
Operation Warp Speed.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a guy who, to his own admission, one of the biggest egos on the earth.
Yeah.
And he's very proud of this. And I respect him there is no limit.
Right.
But I'm being asked a very direct question. And so, man, I looked at him and I said, okay, I'm going to tell you the answer and you're not going to like it. He goes, okay, what's the answer? You're going to look at me like this? I said, let me start off by saying this. We, the American people, do not trust the people that you were forced to trust at the time when this was happening. Let's start there. And I said, by the people we don't trust, here's who I mean. The FDA, the CDC, the NIH, the WHO, Fauci, and all the rest of them. I said, Mr. President, we consider them to be a bunch of murderous, depopulationist psychopaths.
And his reaction was...
That's a good way to start.
His eyes are, he goes, unbelievable. Unbelievable. He's stunned.
Impression.
No, he is stunned that I said that. I said, now, let me tell you why they're booing you. I said, because all of them, including me, I said, I would boo you. I would boo you.
Did you really say that?
I would boo you.
Really?
If you brought that up, and here's why. And he's looking at me, and I'm thinking to myself, this is the last time this guy's going to invite me to anything.
Yeah.
He's never going to call me again. I'm throwing massive shade on a former president's, in his mind, one of his biggest accomplishments. And it dawned on me, nobody had told the man what I was telling him right now, because they all work for him. They all got something to gain from him.
Yes.
They're not going to tell him this because they're not serving him well. I don't work for him. And I think a lot of him, and I want him to understand the truth about it. So I said, here's the problem. Here's why they're booing you, Mr. President, because every human being out in that rally, either themselves or they know someone directly who has been harmed by the or has even died from it, including me. I said, I got members of my own family who were forced to take it against their will to keep their jobs, and now they've got all kinds of problems. Big problems, heart problems, lung problems. And he's looking at me, and he looks around the table and he goes, this is unbelievable. I mean, he goes, has anyone else heard this? Herschel Walker, he was running for Senate at the time. He goes, Mr. President, I mean, down in Georgia, my constituents come up at my rallies, and what John just said, man, I hear it every single day. Looks over at Marcia. Marcia's sitting there going, you know, looks around the table, and then Lindsey Graham, who's sitting across. So you're here, or I'm here. I'm sorry, but you're Lindsey Graham. Sorry, you're Lindsey. I'm sorry.
Lindsey, everybody.
Okay. You're Lindsey Graham, and you're me. Okay. As I'm going into the part where I said, even in my own family, I have Lindsey Graham busts in with it swishing his Chardonnay around and said, Mr. President, if you listen to conspiracy theorists like John Rich, the Democrats are going to take credit for what you did, and they're going to beat you in the next election with it. So I'm looking at Trump, and he's sitting over there, and he does that, and I looked at him and I said, do not interrupt me when I'm speaking. Do you understand me?
You what?
And he looked at me and he goes, well, I didn't mean to disrespect you. I go, yeah, but you did.
Oh.
So,
Right now you look like Wyatt Earp. And it's very intimidating.
Trump is right here. You're Lindsey Graham, okay? I go, I'm holding him.
Oh, good. Yeah. You're Lindsey Graham.
I look back up at the president. I look at him one more time. I go, now let me finish what I was saying.
Oh, man.
And then I finished it. Okay.
That.
Trump ended that by saying, so I guess no more talk. I said, I think that's a good idea. I said, I think you're going to learn a lot about it. But yes, I think that's a good idea because that's the only thing that would make us ever boo you, Mr. President.
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, that's one of the things that I think a lot of people didn't agree with him on. And it was him being proud of it. And Jason actually has a story that's similar to that.
Well, The thing about Trump and the news guy, Trump never mandated the violence.
Exactly.
Trump said, "You're all the doctors. Go figure out how to make this stop."
We need to make this available.
And he trusted these people that we now all know are a bunch of depopulationist animals. We all know that now, but he never mandated it, because mandating an experimental medical procedure violates the Nuremberg Code. It's a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
Which I hope we see that play out, because people need to be held accountable for that in a major way. I think it will.
Yeah.
So that was the story there. So, again, he has called me since then. He does text me back from the Super Bowl. He has invited me to more. So I did not lose my friendship with him. I think, if anything, based on a couple of things he's asked me over the last year or so, he probably appreciates the fact that I'll say something to him that he don't really want to hear that.
1,000,000%, Emily says, yeah. So there you go. I mean, that is an explanation, I think probably rightfully so, as to what is going on. And Susan mentions here, do we want such a clueless leader? Meaning Trump. I think he was just isolated from this information. He'd never heard it before because of what John Rich said. Everybody around him were all yes men telling him how great it was and isolating him from the actual truth of the damage and the destruction and the death it was actually causing. He was isolated from it. So he didn't know about it. And now he does. And I don't know really timeline-wise when this was. I mean, this was, obviously well before the actual election. So he's known about it for some time. Nothing else has really come out about that. There's never been an apology and never will be, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think he ever will come out and officially say anything about how he was tricked or manipulated in a way that he went along with this whole thing. But I do think that John Rich's story there is very, very telling. And we did listen to the whole clip. What I wanted to show you guys was this. Let me back this up. I have to find it. I don't know where it is. All right here, when he's talking about Lindsey Graham. All right, you see the guy there with the green shirt on, who he was jokingly pointing to and saying that right over there is where Lindsey Graham was sitting. This guy right here. That guy's a friend of mine. His name is Kelly Lovelace. And all of these guys sitting around the table, John Rich included, but all of these guys are massive country music songwriters. And they have had so many hits. And they're just, they do, incredible work as far as songwriters go. And they're the ones that are part of this podcast called Try That in a Small Town. That's the name of a song. Try That in a Small Town was a song by Jason Aldean. And these guys wrote that song. And this guy right here is a friend and client of mine. His name is Kelly Lovelace. I didn't pull up his website, but I actually built his website for him. Let me show it to you guys. Probably should have pulled that up ahead of time. But there he is. Kelly Lovelace. And he is a longtime writing partner with Brad Paisley. Guy you've probably heard of before. But this is Kelly's website that I built for him several years back. And that is this guy right here in the green shirt. So he's one of the podcast hosts for this Try That in a Small Town podcast, which I'd never heard of before. I didn't even know he was doing that. So I think it's a fairly new thing, but I do think that they really hit the proverbial, as far as viral clip, though, with this John Rich clip, because it's really gotten a lot of publicity. It's got 1.3 million views on just this one particular video clip on X. So, good news for people that are trying to get the truth to Trump. I do think that, he has that information. Who knows how far he's checked into it beyond this. But, Trump wants to hear more conspiracy theories. Well, according to Lindsey Graham. Yeah, exactly. So you have people like that who are yes men, like Lindsey Graham. They call him Lady G. Some of the other Congress people call him Lady G. People like that whispering in his ear and telling him not to listen to these crazy conspiracy theorists when, in fact, that's where the truth lies, isn't it? Well, anyway, I just wanted to point that out to you guys and show you guys that clip because I thought it was really good and it was really cool. I just kind of stumbled on it and then realized that that's Kelly Lovelace there in the video. So, and then there's his site, and yeah, some of his songs and things like that are linked on here, and we got some photos and his album that he's got available and things like that on his site. So again, good guy. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out to you guys. And as far as that goes, that was the end of the articles I pulled up for tonight. So make sure you're on my Substack. I've mentioned it several times tonight, but yeah, many of you guys are already on there, of course. But if you know others who are you think might be interested in this show, please feel free to pass along not only the Substack link, but just links to any of the videos that I put out. You know, YouTube is an easy one, obviously, to share, and then I'm trying to do the shorter clips on YouTube, which we can take a look at that as well. That's right here. I'm trying to do 2 or 3 new clips from each show per week. So we have the full show, and then we have other clips. Like last week, I did a clip from the show on the trans insanity about the woman and the man in the fencing story, and then the pool that we talked about last week, as in billiards. I made a clip out of that video, and then another one on should Christians observe Passover, which was an article we mentioned last week, and then the weather weapons and geoengineering stuff that we talked about last week with another once in 1,000 year flood. And then the Substack is available and totally free. Just type in your email address and hit subscribe, or if you don't want to even do that, you don't have to subscribe. Just click no thanks, and you'll still get the articles and the links and stuff here on this main page. And we've got the links and the podcasts from last week's show will be on the left side there. So anyway, that is available there. And also all of my links to the various platforms I'm on, that's all right here as well. Diamond Report links. We've got everything from Subscribestar and Spotify and Apple Podcasts down through, some of the little bit lesser known type of social media platforms like Getter and Parler and Brighteon Social and so forth. Those are on there as well. If you happen to be on any of those platforms, they're there. So the links are there. And then I wanted to mention Subscribestar. I didn't really mention it last week. I did lose a subscriber, unfortunately, but that's the way it goes. We still only have 5 total subscribers on Subscribestar. So I would just ask that if you guys would prayerfully consider supporting the Diamond Report, it would certainly help me out. It's all, just funded out of my pocket and a little bit out of your guys' pockets as well. So I definitely appreciate all of those that are helping. We've got, I think it's 12 total paid subscribers on Substack and about 250 who are free subscribers. And then on Subscribestar, we've got another 5 more paid subscribers here. But what I did was I've come up with a few more extra tiers. Well, the tiers are the same. A few more extras that are implemented into the tiers here, and that's all on this page. If you guys want to peruse that, those are available at some of these extra tiers that are a little bit more expensive, have extra bonus communications type things. Like, for instance, one thing I was going to start including in one of these tiers is monthly private group Zoom meetings with other subscribers and myself for developing face-to-face friendships and researching stuff together and prayer requests, etc. So that's one thing that we might do, just, for people who are in those tiers. I was trying to come up with some different little extras and things like that we could do that might be fun. So that was one idea that I came up with, and there's a few others listed on this page. So Diamond Disc on Subscribestar. So, and that link is in the black box in the corner up there, subscribestar.com/Diamond Disc. And Diamond Disc is just my company name. So if you guys are confused as to why I use that, I just use it because it's one word and it's pretty easy to remember. And we have the store here as well, which I'm sporting a Diamond Report t-shirt tonight. I've got this Diamond Report Live t-shirt on here. Let me see. I guess it's this one. No, it's this one. It's this one right here. it is a navy blue one that I have. This picture is a more of a charcoal type of color, but it's that shirt. And then got various hats and mugs and all kinds of stuff over there on the store. So that's a good way to support the show and what I'm doing. And again, sharing the links and the show links and the podcast and stuff like that from my other platforms like Rumble and BitChute and Brighteon and stuff. That's also very helpful. So if you can't afford to pay anything and subscribe, that's totally fine. No pressure. It is there, though, if you're available to do that, if you're so inclined. However, the the Rumble video seems to be doing pretty well as far as being shared around and stuff a little bit. BitChute and Brighteon are the other two, like little bit, not quite as known, I suppose, on those platforms. And then we have the band group, and we've linked to some of these things over here in the chat. So Miss Emily's put those links in chat earlier. So Subscribestar and Substack as well as Band. And Band is our private group that we have. That's already sort of a private way of talking amongst yourselves sort of situation. But anybody who's a follower of the show can certainly get in there and post things and make new friends. It's always fun. And so that is available. It's on band.us/@thediamondreport. So that is where that one is. And I think that was all that I had for you guys tonight. Let's watch this last Reese report, because I mentioned that I had a video on RFK, and I don't know how much of these Reese reports people are seeing now, just because, if you're a follower of Greg's work, you're seeing it. But if you're not directly following his work, then you might not see his videos quite as much now, because he's not being played on like Band.video. His channel's not on there anymore for whatever reason. I don't know. I guess he's not working for InfoWars now, so I think that's why. But anyway, I thought this video was pretty interesting, and I'm not personally on the anti-RFK Jr. bandwagon. As a lot of people are jumping on the being hard on people right away. And I personally would like to give some of these new people who have these positions a little bit of time to do their job. I can't imagine trying to jump in and not only do this job that they've been hired to do, but also to have to deal with the mess left behind from the previous administration. So I can't imagine what that would be like. But so I hope you guys have a blessed week this week. The next show, Diamond Report Live, will be on the 20th. So April 20th, which will actually be Easter/Passover/ whatever day you want to call it, Resurrection Day. We'll go ahead and do a show that night. So I don't really feel like we need to skip that. So we'll plan to do that. If something comes up, I'll let you guys know ahead of time, like family things. But I don't think we have anything planned at this moment. So blessings to you all. I hope you guys have a really great week this week, and feel free to stay in touch. You can do that through Band. That's probably the best way to go. And then also, obviously, through the comments and things like that on some of the videos that had many good comments lately on some of the videos. So thank you guys for that. I appreciate that very much. So blessings you all. Love you guys. And stay tuned for this last Reese report, The Empty Rhetoric of Maha. Talk to you guys soon.